Hello and welcome. Now, there is a double test obligation for passengers traveling from Ghana to the Netherlands. The PCR test as well as the antigen test. The rapid test must be taken no more than 4 hours before departure. Now, this is in addition to the existing obligation to perform a PCR test 72 hours before you depart. I sat with the Managing Director for KLM Ghana, Dick Van Nieuwenzen, on this developing story, plus other related issues in the aviation sector.
Somewhere last week, we heard this news about, proposed speculation, if that could be, about KLM suspending some particular flights, if not to Ghana, some specific countries as well. We also heard about Netherlands, imposing temporary travel bans on specific countries. Regarding the long-haul flights, we do know that currently this has been suspended. You're now going long-haul flights. It hasn't been suspended in that nature. But yet again, Ghanaian travelers are concerned about the additional flight protocols they would have to adhere to in order to embark on your airline. Can you explain to us what particular additional measures are you putting in place?
Yeah, it is last week, Tuesday, the Dutch government announced a travel ban as per starting as Friday evening at 12 o'clock. There is a travel ban between the UK and the Netherlands. You're talking about air.
Sure.
South America, the Netherlands, and South Africa and the Netherlands. Another measure which they have imposed was that every passenger entering the Netherlands or transiting via the Netherlands needed a second test, a second antigen test. Now, that implemented that all passengers boarding here our flights going to Amsterdam or via Amsterdam to final destination, they will need a COVID-19 test, a negative COVID-19 test not older than 72 hours, and they need an antigen test, which is not allowed to be older than 4 hours before departure. Now, that created some impact. We heard the news Tuesday evening on the press conference of our Prime Minister. And it was also meant that all crew of KLM would be tested also. And then KLM started to object. Because if you test all crew, it can be that one of the crew members will be tested positive. Now, if that is the case, the crew member is not allowed to join the flight back to Amsterdam. And he or she should stay home. Now, that was not allowed or not practically not used, because that means the crew will leave and just one crew member will stay behind.
But that's basic, COVID-19 protocols these are unusual times.
Yeah, correct. But there are other facilities. So what has been decided now that the crew will be tested upon arrival, not before departure, but upon arrival. So the crew will still be tested for COVID. And the passengers need to do a second antigen test before boarding the aircraft. Now, that all was decided on Tuesday evening. So we had very little time. There was at one side, there was the whole story, would we operate long haul, would we not operate? The decision or the change in the regulation that crew can be tested upon arrival was only taking last Saturday. So there was a lot of miscommunication, a lot of speculation, would we travel, would we not travel. I have to say, if you look at the Dutch press, they immediately issued press statements that KLM will cancel flights and that we will not operate, now which was not correct, because the decision has never been taken. There was a threat that if the measures for the crew will be there, that we will stop operating long-haul flights. But the decision to stop operating was never been taken. Now, we were able here during this weekend to set up testing facilities. We have two testing facilities. We have the ICAI clinic in Oslo, where you can do an antigen test. And we have a testing street at the airport at parking lot number 4. So 4 hours before boarding the aircraft, you have to do your antigen test, and that is now possible. We had Sunday our first flight with the new rules and regulations, and we were able to carry on 160 passengers, and we only refused 3 passengers because of no COVID, no antigen test. So it is working, and we are back in business again.
So far you have, declined rejected 3 passengers from Ghana.
Yeah.
Why? Because they did not take the antigen test.
They didn't have the antigen
But
test.
how much does it cost to have this antigen test at Akai? Because our figures tell us close to 850 Ghana cedis for the test.
At the airport it cost $150. Akai is charging at this moment less, but I know there will be a meeting today between the testing company at the airport and Akai clinic to find a fair level of testing price.
So 850 was on the high side.
At the airport they charge $150.
But help us understand, because there are also concerns that this second layer form of COVID testing could even place in much more pressure on the Ghanaian traveler out there. Is this something you're replicating just in Ghana or across other countries?
No, the antigen testing for KLM flights only, not Air France, not the other airlines, but it is only KLM, is applicable worldwide. I know there are a few exceptions, but in principle it is applicable for all passengers boarding a KLM flight or going to Amsterdam or transited via Amsterdam will need the antigen test. It is not something which is specifically for Ghana, but it is for all passengers worldwide.
I went through the health directory of the Dutch government where you stated specific safe countries where issues regarding COVID-19 rigorous testing and whatnot will be determined based on the safety of these countries. Here in Ghana, we're experiencing a second wave, and we have even discovered a new variant to COVID-19, similar to that of South Africa.
Correct.
Is that going to be informing your next decision moving forward?
Ghana is by the Dutch government. It has nothing to do with KLM. It is the Dutch government is deciding which country is safe, which country is not safe. Ghana is being considered as a not safe country. So for the antigen test and the COVID-19 test, the PCR test, both applies for passengers boarding a KLM aircraft in Ghana. Now that it is, if I look at all policies in Europe, because each and every country is applying their own policy, it is a patchwork of different measures and regulations. And I can understand that it is for the average passenger really a hassle to figure out which documents you need, which test you need and what you have to do. Because, for example, if you look at transit visas, since the UK is out of the EU, Brexit, passengers going via Amsterdam or going via Europe to the UK, they will need all of a sudden a transit visa. Now that is also recently new, because we started that at the 1st of January. So I can understand that the passengers have a lot of problems in determining what you need and what you don't need. I will therefore advise all passengers to check at the websites of each and every airline. KLM is planning to send out again today a mailer to all our passengers and contacts exactly what the latest rules and regulations are and what is involved and what is not involved and what is needed.
Let's talk about the KLM crew, because I read this journal from Singapore where one of the crew members got arrested because he defied COVID protocols. Everything regarding adherence to protocols rests on your shoulders. Yes, you're clear to come. You know, your crew members cleared to come amid COVID issues. But what exactly are you doing to ensure that crew members stick to COVID-19 protocols moving forward, especially with the Ghana story?
The crew members are not tested upon arrival. There's an exemption, like for example diplomats. They will go to the hotel and they have hotel arrest, so they are not allowed to leave the hotel premises. They will arrive at 10 o'clock or at 8 o'clock in the evening. They will depart next day 10 o'clock, so they're 22 hours in the country, and they are not leaving the hotel premises.
But this protocol is there. Yet we had this story from Singapore about one of the crew members.
Singapore was a different story. Yes, Singapore, we had that here in Accra also, where the crew had room arrest. They had to stay in their room. They were not allowed to leave the room. In Singapore, one of the crew left her room and went to the check-in counter, what I've understood, and was therefore arrested. Now,
in Ghana?
In Singapore.
Okay.
And in Ghana, they don't have to stay at their room. They are allowed to go to the breakfast room and to stay at the pool. They are not allowed to leave the hotel.
How much of a difference air travel has been for KLM amid COVID-19, with Ghana being the perspective? What has changed?
A lot has changed. If you see, we reduce frequencies. KLM is at this moment, instead of 7 flights a week, we fly 6 times a week. Air France, instead of 7 times a week, we fly 4 times a week. There was a remark made in the Netherlands that flying is getting back to the elite because it is getting costly. All those tests, if you want to come to Ghana, you need a negative PCR test, you have to do an antigen test. If you want to leave Ghana, you have to do a PCR test, you have to do an antigen test. It is getting expensive. It is getting expensive, and I cannot compensate the cost of all these tests in my ticket price, because then there is nothing left over. So I can understand that people are saying sorry, it is getting too expensive to travel. And what is also happening, there are a lot of bans. Still, African passengers are not allowed to enter the EU. So there are a lot of restrictions for passengers to travel. And that is hampering business, and it is hampering your social contacts and visiting your friends or relatives abroad. It is no fun anymore.
But we have no choice.
We have no choice. You can think you can better now take tough decisions and then sit out the time you have those decisions. We have the vaccines coming in. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but you can ask yourself the question, where is the end of the tunnel? Is that this year? Is that next year? Is it this summer? You saw last year, as from the summer in Europe, the figures were going down. The rules and regulations were being eased up, and in September we had the second wave. Now, we have at this moment, we have the old-fashioned COVID, if you can say it like that, but you have now also the South African type, you have the British type, the UK type. There are a lot of extra different factors coming in. And at this moment I see things going worse. It's not going better, but it's going worse. But for how long? Because the vaccines has arrived and we start to vaccinate the people. And we have to sit it out till the vaccinations have been done.
So when everything comes to show, I want us to understand the culture, the recent culture of travel under COVID-19. You earlier on stated that about 3 passengers from Ghana were, denied access. Why? Because they failed to have the antigen test. Yeah. Are we going to be expecting more of these rejections in the future?
We don't need to have the rejections, but the point is passengers should be aware what is needed and what is not needed.
But are they aware?
They should be aware because you can check the website of each airline. You can read the news, what is happening and not happening. And if you come at the airport in time, there is time to get your antigen test because there is a test street at the airport. If you come in very late, before departure, then there is simply no more time. Yesterday we refused 3 passengers, but we left with 1 hour delay, just to accommodate the rest of the passengers. So what I expect is that we will not refuse any passengers because of no test, but I will foresee a lot of delays in our flights. But try to imagine that you have 4 hours before departure and you have to test 200 passengers. Now that is really putting stress and pressure on the system. Now then you can say, will I leave on time and leave passengers behind, or will I delay my flight and accept more passengers?
And we shall have more on this interaction with the KLM boss in our subsequent bulletins. But you're still watching The Marketplace. We're taking a short break for more business stories this day. And welcome back. Businesses and consumers will soon be compelled to sign on to new insurance products, as the National Insurance Commission will soon introduce a basket of compulsory insurance protocols. Now, this follows the passage of the 2020 Insurance Bill, which has finally obtained the presidential assent. Deputy Commissioner of Insurance Michael Ando made this revelation to Joy Business at the 2021 Chartered Institute of Ghana's investiture, we saw the Managing Director of the Metropolitan Life Insurance, Teria Ben Ahmed, succeed, as well as Bishop Asante Mafo Ahinkrab, as the new president of the institute.
Well, there are new provisions in the Act, and they affect regulated entities and other parties, and you need to set effective dates for implementation of those provisions. So those are the transitional arrangements that need to be made for the implementation of the bill.
With regards to the bill and with what you presented to Parliament and subsequently to the President, were there any additions or deductions from what you presented?
Well, we are yet to see the final product that was passed by Parliament. You know, at the final stages, it's taken over by Parliament and they pass it and send it to the President. We are yet to see the very final product that came out. We haven't seen it yet, so I may not be able to comment at this time. But we don't expect any major differences between what we submitted and what has been passed.
Okay, so refresh our minds once again on some of the compulsory insurances you seek to implement going forward.
Well, I think the compulsory insurance on commercial commercial properties, which is already there. Some of the new ones are professional indemnity for certain professions and occupations, and public liability for certain places and certain trades and occupations.
Well, meanwhile, the new president of the CIIG, Teria Ben Ahmed, says the institute will draw some lessons from the banking sector cleanup to ensure that its members are not found culpable during the insurance sector's recapitalization process.
Thank you very much. We give our two-year strategy Defend and Grow name, and the reason is simple. If you look at what is happening in the not too distant future, past, you realize that the banking sector suffered a bit of setback, where a number of banks had to lose their license. A number of banks in the banking sector had to go down following an action of the Bank of Ghana. If you study closely the conversations around what's happened there, corporate governance, risk management, control environment emerged as some of the strong issues that emerged from there. Now, Defend and Grow, the Chartered Insurances of Ghana, is saying that the Defend bucket is saying ensure governance excellence, ensure the constitution supporting the Chartered Insurances of Ghana is fit for purpose in the changing times in which we are, and then ensure that your cash flow and investments are managed by a proper investment policy. So governance excellence will defend the Chartered Insurances of Ghana, and we want to establish a governance excellence reference point for members. We are learning from what is happening in the banking sector so that we set up and improve our governance excellence as a professional body so that our members can learn from it and do better. Because trust me, insurance is a specialized type of service. The trust of insurance is largely dependent on the quality of your governance excellence behind the business. Because you're giving, in essence, insurance is a promise to pay valid claims delightfully and a commitment to provide quality and reliable solutions and services. So if you promise to pay valid claims under a contract you have issued, trust, confidence, integrity of the business cannot be overemphasized. And that is what we are talking about as in governance excellence under the Defend bucket of the Defend and Grow strategy.
Well, that was Teria Ben Ahmed, the new president of the Chartered Insurance Institute of Ghana. Away from that, Ghana's inflation rate will end this year at an average of 8.5%. That's a projection from the research arm of the ratings agency Fitch. Charles Nixie-Yeboah has been looking at the impacts of this, especially on retail and institutional spending.
This will probably come as a good omen for the economy, as average change in prices of goods and services within a period will remain lower than expected. It will, as a result, help consumers and businesses plan effectively, since their disposable income and budget will not be eroded by the anticipated stable inflation. Additionally, a consistent lower and steady inflation plus other improved economic indicators may compel the Bank of Ghana to reduce its policy rate. This accordingly could push lending rate or cost of credit slightly down. Liquidity, consumer and business spending will subsequently be boosted. Senior country risk analyst for Sub-Saharan Africa at Fitch Solutions, William Atwell, has been answering a question by Joy Business on why inflation will be lower and stable this year.
The inflation outlook, inflation's obviously been fairly elevated towards during the second half of last year, and that certainly put a bit of downward pressure on households' spending power. Looking ahead to this year, we're expecting inflation to average around 8.5%, which is sort of lower than the final months of last year. That's going to support household incomes, of course.
Inflation remained within the 9 and 10% bracket for the greater part of last year. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, financial services, recreation, sports and culture, and education services inflation remained very low in 2020.
Well, in today's edition of Money Lab, the Executive Director of Financial Literacy for Africa, Dr. Richmond Kwame Frimpong, educates us on blocking leakages on income to be financially sound. Listen in.
On Money Lab today, I want to welcome you to our session on financial wellness. We are rounding up on the income side of financial wellness today. And today we want to say that to do well financially on the income side, try to block every leakage on your income side. The leakages on your income side are the things that take away money from you with or without your permission. When was the last time you checked your bank account and took a good look at the charges on that savings account? So you have multiple accounts and you barely use all of them, but it is having a toll on your income. When you do that, you bring in and it goes out without your notice. Block that leakage. How about the other person who has had a premium or an insurance account and there is a direct debit on that account? It's a life or it's a general insurance account and you keep paying and paying and paying, but you've never even bothered if it applies to you and what you said you wanted to do. You are probably assuming it's an investment. Block that leakage, and if it's possible to revise the premium and the direct debits, please do, so that the charges come to you as income. How about the other person who also on his income is paying for things online that he could have bought in a shop, but he just wants to buy it online? Remember that when you do any of these things cited, there will be a toll on your incomes, and those deductions may not be visible. At the end of the day, you'll be working hard for the incomes and they'll be going out as charges. Block them and your financial wellness on income side will be good to go.
I trust you took down some notes. That's how we end Marketplace. I'm Charles Ayetim. Many thanks for watching.